Hi, I'm Texas Camp Gal, and I'm documenting my life as a fourth generation Texas ranch owner here in South Texas on my family's land. I did grow up here, but not in the way that most people think. I grew up following directions, doing what I was told, and not really asking why. I was just being a good student, being a good daughter, being a good ranch employee. But it's different from actually understanding something, because doing something and knowing why you're doing it are not the same thing. So now I'm coming back to this land differently, trying to understand it, trying to slow down, and trying to learn. And I'll be honest, I don't always know what I'm doing. Probably most of the time, I don't know what I'm doing, but I keep showing up. So this week, something changed. For the past month or so, I have mostly just been a shadow to my brother when he is doing his ranch chores, job chores day to day, and mostly a gate opener. And like I said, just a shadow, just watching and asking questions. But my brother finally let me do something, like an actual task. He let me load the 5-round hay bale buggy. I should have realized this, being a photographer, and knowing all my buttons by muscle memory, that I didn't realize how much muscle memory he had inside the tractor, with the levers and whatnot. For him, it's an automatic. For me, I have to think every single time right before I'm going to move something or adjust something. Before I let out the clutch, I'm thinking, do you want to do it? Okay. Before I lift the spear, I'm thinking. Before I tilt the spear, I'm thinking. Even something simple like, which way does the lever go? I just can't react. I have to stop. I have to look at it. I have to think. I have to think about it some more. And then I can move. And half the time it's the wrong direction. But while I'm doing that, John's already on the next step. I kept expecting him to walk over and just yank me out of the tractor cab. Every bell, every hesitation, every pause, I thought he was going to lose patience with me and just come take over. And then there was the netting on the hay. I was so nervous about ripping it because then, the hay would come unraveled more easily when we were driving down the street. Because if you pull the spear wrong out of the bale of hay, you can rip it. And again, I just couldn't do it as pretty and efficiently as he does. He makes it look so easy. Me doing it did not feel easy at all. The whole time, he's just sitting in his truck on his phone, pretending not to watch. But I knew he was watching, and later he told me he was watching and that I was doing it wrong. And that felt like about right. Still, he let me do it. And as nervous as I was, that mattered, because I really want to be able to do things in his absence. It really mattered a lot. Then I got to work Dad's garden. And this one hit a little bit differently because I had filmed my dad many times working in that garden, driving his tractor in that garden, tilling that same soil so many times. And while I was out there, I could see rocks in the garden that had been scarred, by his plow. And now I was out there, the one doing it. And I just started noticing the ground, the rocks with those scars from his plows. Marks that were still there from him working the same soil. And then I started working his fireplace ash into the soil. Something that we always did is reincorporate that ash back into our garden areas, trying to improve it. And it hit me that those ashes were from his last fires from this past winter. And now, I'm mixing them back into the ground. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's kind of hard to explain. And it kind of feels like time overlaps sometimes. Like you're doing something new, but you're also continuing something. So I tilled, about an acre if I had to guess. And let me tell you something, those straight lines are hard. And don't tell my brother, but especially when you're also trying to film content for your channel. I'm pretty sure I needed a GPS in that tractor. We tilled it, or I tilled it, and a lot of times I had so many gaps in my rows that I had to go back, 2 or 3 times to fill in those gaps. Not perfect, but it's done. And I also planted some vegetables out there, some cucumber, some corn, some green onion, and some Beefmaster tomatoes. Out at the cabin, I trimmed some branches and I cleared some deadfall. And instead of chopping grass like it was the 1850s, I used a weed eater to properly mow down all that grass out there, which worked a lot better and a lot easier. At one point I ran the chain off the chainsaw. I tried to fix it out there in the field, but all I had was Dad's crescent wrench out of his toolbox, and it didn't work. It just kept slipping off. So I brought the chainsaw back, chain still off, and my brother let me know, Blaylock Rule 101, returning broken equipment is not part of the system. So I had to get it back together and I had to fix it. And when he showed me the proper tools, actually threw them at my feet in his shop, I fixed the chainsaw. This week, just felt different. Not because I don't know what I'm doing, because I don't. But because I was trusted to try. And there's a difference between watching and doing. Even if you're slow, even if you're inefficient, even if you're overthinking, even if you're doing it wrong, especially if you're doing it wrong. I've had a lot of people reaching out, asking questions about the ranch, about the cows, about the land. So next week, I'm answering them. If you have any specific questions you want me to answer, drop them in the comments and I will address those in episode 6. So until then, I may not be fast and I may not be efficient, but this week he let me try, and that feels like progress. All right, Texas Camp Gal here. Be sure to like, follow, comment, subscribe, heart, share, all the things. Help me grow this channel.